freaking first cut. Golly.
Welcome to the First Cut Podcast. I'm Rick Gehman, and this is your round two recap for this week's Wells Fargo Championship. Joining me to break it all down, Greg DuCharme is here, and get used to it because it's Greg and I tonight, tomorrow, and Sunday night. Good to have you, bud.
Holding down the fort, Rick. Great to do it with you. This is a really cool tournament. I love talking about it. I'm happy to get the chance to chat Wells Fargo with you tonight.
Yeah, I mean, Quail Hollow, honestly, for me, we have a great leaderboard, and we'll talk about some of the guys, but it kind of steals the show, right? I love the Green Mile. 16, 17, and 18 played brutally difficult on Friday. I also love that we've gotten a very similar morning, afternoon wave. Like every afternoon, it gets a lot harder around Quail Hollow. Basically, a shot more difficult. And it really, it doesn't steal the show for me, but it plays a large part in it.
Well, you think about all the drama that takes place down the stretch. We've seen it in both these first two rounds. You think about yesterday with Jordan Spieth on 18 and Xander on 18 as well. Today you have Rory hitting it pretty close to the creek. Jason Day making a mistake on 17, taking him from inside the cut line to outside the cut line. So those last three holes, I mean, they played the most difficult three holes on the golf course today. 1, 2, and 3.
Right.
16 was 1, 17 was 2, and 18 was 3. And it makes for a really exciting round.
That stupid little creek on 18 just collects golf balls. I love it. And even if it stays out, you have a difficult stance like Rory had, or just like, now what am I going to do? Right. I mean, we saw Rory, remember, I guess it was 21 where he and Harry Diamond, they just like advanced it further up the hill. Right.
I remember that.
It's like, what are you going to do here? I don't know. Just like hit it 10 yards over there.
Right. That was a long discussion. I remember that.
Yeah, very long. We'll get to Rory McIlroy. Played in the afternoon wave. We're going to start with the morning wave here. And Justin Thomas bettered his Thursday 68 with a Friday 67. It was 1 under going out, but then on his second 9, the front 9 on the golf course, he made birdies on 4, 6, and 8. So JT, a place where he's won one of his major championships, is vibing around Quail Hollow yet again.
Yeah, clearly a good place for him. And you know, JT this year has kind of had to be a little more scrappy than in past years. His ball striking hasn't really been up to the level, maybe better of late, but it hasn't really been up to the level that we're used to seeing out of Justin Thomas. And this week it seems to be making a little resurgence. You see, he was 4th in strokes gained approach the green today, which is a really welcome sign for Justin Thomas. You know, hitting the ball a little bit better is a really good sign for him. And he also holds some really nice putts. He missed a couple of 8-footers, but all in all, I mean, he rolled in a couple of really nice ones. So it seems like he's got the speed down on the greens this week too.
Yeah, vintage JT gaining 3.1 strokes on approach on Friday. Xander Schauffele, the other big name that went out early this morning. It was a 2 under 69, Greg, which is going to beat the field average by 2 shots. It will beat the morning wave by, let's see here, a little bit more than that. No, I guess a little bit less than that. But I'm looking at the stat profile here. He was 36th off the tee, 48th on approach, 102nd around the green, and 39th with the flat stick. He didn't do anything great. He gained strokes to the field, and that's kind of what Xander does every single day of his life.
Yes, he did the same thing yesterday, right? 33rd off the tee, 32nd approach the green, 28th around the green, and 14th putting, and yet he finds himself right near the top of the lead. You know, it's kind of, on a golf course like this, I find it to be quite interesting. There's a lot of players near the top of the lead that have profiles like this. We're not seeing a lot of guys leading. You know, one thing I like to always do is look at the statistical leaderboards, right? Who's leading off the tee, who's leading approach, who's leading. And I'm always looking for a correlation. Oh, all the guys that are leading in around the green are leading the tournament. You know, I'm always looking for something like that. And it's not there this week. because the guys near the top of the leaderboard have been, for the most part, well-rounded. Xander is the epitome of that. And while this was kind of a slow motion, he didn't really get a whole lot going. He has himself in a great position in this tournament, and might be leading if it weren't for a mistake off the tee at 18 yesterday.
Xander Schauffele, Justin Thomas, out of the morning wave. Those were two guys that were discussed heavily before the tournament started as opportunities to win the golf tournament. The three guys from the early wave who are currently tied for the lead at 8 under par, not necessarily part of that large conversation. Tyrrell Hatton, Nate Lashley, and Wyndham Clark. Greg, where would you like to start here? Which one do you want to go with first?
Well, let's take it right in order. Let's go with Hatton first.
Tyrrell Hatton, a flurry to end his Friday. He played the front 9 as his second 9, made a birdie on 6, an eagle on 7, and another birdie on 9. That's 4 under in his final 4 holes to vault him from 2 under par to 6 under par for the round, moving him to 8 under par for the tournament. And Tyrrell Hatton might have just found a golf course he liked, Greg.
Yeah, we'll see. Let's wait and see for the weekend. Yeah, look, a lot of putts fell for Tyrrell Hatton today. He probably had. He didn't lead in the category, but I mean, he made a lot of putts from long range. And of the guys near the top of this leaderboard, he seemed to have the best feel. And that opportunity to get hot late in the round was pretty cool. So if you flip this scorecard around, it doesn't feel quite as good if he ends with a couple of bogeys in the green mile. And that's something that they'll have to contend with over the weekend. But all in all, he's a really solid driver of the golf ball. And he is a solid ball striker who can get really hot with the putter. So Tyrrell Hatton has some win equity at this point, not just because he's in the lead, but because while he putted really well today, and that's what vaulted him to the top of the leaderboard, I don't think he has to lean on that through the remainder of the week. I think on a golf course like this, his ability to put the ball in the fairway, he hit 9 fairways in both of the first 2 rounds. I think that's something that can give him a really nice advantage.
Tyrrell Hatton's last win, Greg, do you remember?
On the PGA Tour API.
Okay, I was going to say, I'll take either his most recent PGA Tour win or worldwide win. Correct there. 2020 API, his only PGA Tour win. He has won, let's see. He won twice on the European Tour after that.
He won at Carnoustie and St. Andrews and the Alfred Dunhill Links.
Yep, he won it twice. That was prior, 16 and 17.
Okay. And then did he win in Dubai?
He won Abu Dhabi.
Abu Dhabi. Okay.
That was his most recent. And then that was the one I forgot. The one that I remembered was at Wentworth, because remember, he grew up going to
that's right.
BMW PGA Championship. That was
That's a big one.
Big one. That was in October of the year that he won API, which was 2020. So Tyrrell Hatton in the mix again. Greg mentioned the putting. He gained 2.5 strokes putting on Friday. That's 10th in the field as of right now. Nate Lashley. Friday 66, not a single bogey on the card. I am looking at the results for Nate Lashley, and I'm looking for top 10s. Let's see what I can find. A T3 in Puerto Rico in March. A T7 at the Sony Open in January. Before that, it was Puerto Rico again the year before, March. So that is 3 top 10 finishes on the PGA Tour dating back to March of 2022, about 14 months ago. So this is not a position we have seen Nate Lashley frequent as of late.
Especially not in designated events, right? Now, here's the thing. He has been the best player this week. I mean, you look at what Nate Lashley has done, and whether you're looking at the eye test, watching the rounds, he's been in control more than anybody else. He's putting the ball in the fairway, this is like the sleepy rounds of golf, right? He's putting the ball in the fairway, putting the ball on the green, and sprinkling in a couple putts here and there. He's the only guy that's made this extremely difficult golf course look somewhat easy over the first 2 days. Leading the field and strokes gained approach the green. Like I said, I mean, as I'm going through some of these other leaderboards, he's the only guy near the top where I'm saying, oh, okay. Nate Lashley is the guy.
Oh,
But then it's Nate Lashley.
Nate
And
Lashley.
Nate Lashley can't be the guy.
That is a sentence no one has ever said before.
No, but that's what this is the difficult thing about our job, right? What do you stick with? Do you stick with numbers? I mean, you can't just detach the name from it because he is. I mean, I know he's won on the PGA Tour and in electric fashion, by the way.
Yes.
Maybe this is a runaway Nate Lashley week like it was at the Rocket Mortgage a couple of years ago.
Yeah, where he got in on like Wednesday night, right? Like,
yes.
Into the event like Wednesday night. He wasn't even on DraftKings. Most books didn't even offer him. He won by like 5 or 6 shots. He went wire to wire. I mean, if that is one win and the second win is this Wells Fargo Championship, an elevated event like 5 years later, that would be a pretty unique resume.
Look, yes, it would. And you highlighted it. We talk about that win. He is like an ultimate popper.
Yeah.
He just pops up sometimes. It's very rare, but his good stuff is really good. And so he scares me. Now you have to put the name on it, and you have guys like Justin Thomas and Xander Schauffele, and they're not the only ones, but there are a lot of heavy hitters on this leaderboard. So can he bring his best stuff in this field on this golf course for 4 days? I think he'll have to. I would be surprised if he did, but the numbers are saying that he's the guy. So it's fun. It's fun, but it's a challenge.
We'll check back in 24 hours.
Yeah.
He's still the guy. Both Hatton and Lashley at 8 under. The third man at 8 under is Wyndham Clark, and there is nobody, Greg, that we have gotten a better ROI from in terms of strokes gained oxygen, because we have spent so much oxygen on Wyndham Clark, and he continues to make us look phenomenal. It was a second consecutive 67, and whatever this man found with his irons in Torrey Pines, I need the magic combination, because he has been studly on approach, and he's doing it again this week. He's 5th in strokes gained approach, 4.2 strokes for the week. It's unbelievable the run he's been on.
14 greens both days. It's really an amazing turnaround. I mean, you're talking about, and he does it at elevated events too, yes. Right? He does it everywhere. The amazing thing about him is he has really turned, in seemingly the blink of an eye, a absolute weakness into absolute strength. I would love to know what it is that caused this. I doubt this is something that took place in his golf swing. Maybe some little tweak that helped, but this feels like a strategy change. I mean, he's only hit 10 fairways the first 2 days. He hit 6 yesterday and 4 today. And he's been able to hit some long irons out of the rough, out of fairway bunkers, and been able to put it onto the green, avoid mistakes, and take advantage, roll in a couple of putts here and there too. So yeah, Wyndham Clark has something going on. I worry about him come Sunday, and that seems to be the next hurdle for him when he gets in contention, when he gets near the lead. Can he deliver the same kind of performance? He hasn't been able to do that of late. He's been a little bit of a fader down the stretch, but he's putting himself in better and better positions. And this is just yet another opportunity for him to leap that hurdle.
Entering the week, over the last 36 rounds, he was the 3rd best player in this field, a stacked field in strokes gained approach behind Tony Finau and Xander Schauffele. So Finau, Schauffele, Clark. By the way, Josh, is that photo from today? Is that the grip he's using on his putter?
Yes, it is.
That is if you're not watching on YouTube, it is first off, it's a super stroke that looks bigger than the biggest super stroke I've ever seen. And it's also incredibly long. I've never seen a super stroke like that.
It is the entire length of his forearm, hand to forearm.
It's outrageous.
It's long. Yeah, it's a longer putter. Obviously, if it was regulation size, there'd be no shaft.
Wow.
Yeah, but he grips that thing down, somewhat in the middle of the grip, and he can roll it too. I mean, the start of his career, a lot of his work came on the greens.
Yeah,
it's a scary combination.
and he's long.
Very.
So like he's a long hitter who can putt and just figured out how to hit his irons and wedges. That is like no wonder he's got what feels like 15 top 10s this year.
Yeah. The skill set now when you add in this iron play is elite. But he's got to start to believe that. And he can be one of these, big name. He could be a big name if he can believe it. And I watch him play. That's the last step for him.
I was so impressed in Phoenix when because he was in a couple of final groups with like Schauffele and Rahm on the weekend. So, but is there a precedent? He's been on tour for 6 or 7 years. Is there a precedent for a guy that kind of took this long to find it? And listen, I know it's only been 6 months or whatever, or however long you want to say this great run, but is there a precedent for a guy where something clicked this kind of late in his career and it continues for an extended stretch?
There have been some situations. There are two guys that I think of right off the rip. And that would be like Steve Stricker and Matt Kuchar. But they made dramatic swing changes. Right? Their swings they completely overhauled their swings and then went on to have, extremely respectable careers. I mean, Matt Kuchar he could barely make a cut. I know he won the U.S. Amateur, but when he got out on tour, he lost his card. He was playing on the Korn Ferry Tour. He changed his swing and became one of the more consistent players on the PGA Tour. And Steve Stricker did something very similar. Those would be the first two guys that come to mind. But with Wyndham, it's not that dramatic. I mean, Max Homa? Probably not that long.
Like but it was also like more of a gradual progression. This is like literally at Torrey Pines, his numbers flipped and he's been holding on to it for 5 months.
Yeah, it was. I haven't checked in the last 2 weeks or so, but it was in 5 weeks after Farmers. 4 of those weeks were his 4 best.
I remember
strokes gate approach weeks.
Yes.
Which is, it's outrageous. It doesn't happen 4 times in a row. No, nobody has, unless it's your first 4 starts, right? Nobody has their best strokes gate approach weeks 4 weeks in a row.
Starts 2 through 5 of your career that can happen. Not like 200 in or whatever we are.
No, it's very, very unique, and it's deserving of the oxygen we give it.
Yeah, I'm excited for him. I hope he pulls one of these off. All right, we will transition to the afternoon wave, and then we'll look at the betting board. But first, we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our partners.
The PGA Tour heads to Quail Hollow with a field including McIlroy, Cantlay, and Schauffele at the Wells Fargo Championship this weekend on CBS.
And we're back. That 8 under par number, which is the lead for Hatton, Lashley, and Wyndham Clark, was important because that's where KH Lee was when he stepped onto the tee of his final hole of the day, number 9 in this case. And he ends up making a double there to drop him to 6 under. But Greg, I say don't worry about it. This is just KH Lee getting reps in before he goes for the three-peat next week at Byron Nelson.
Great call, by the way.
Can I get it now? I don't want to wait until the odds come out. Let me just get it in now.
This round of golf was so much better than 70. He's playing so good. He had a terrible tee shot on 9. And, if you join the broadcast late and you start watching late, that's all you see. But this guy is swinging as well as anybody out here. And again, if you go through these rounds of golf and take the names off of them, Nate Lashley is one of my guys. KH Lee would be my other. He looks so steady. I mean, he's only missed 5 greens so far this week. It really been just incredible ball striking. And you remember at the President's Cup, he played really well. He was 2-1 there, beat Billy Horschel in a singles match. But even in addition to the performance during that week, everybody on his team was saying that KH Lee was the guy who was taking all their money in the practice rounds. So I get the sense he really, really likes Quail Hollow. He's swinging really well right now. And KH Lee is, I like what I'm seeing out of him. Not just for next week, but for this week too.
Let's let's hope he just shoots like 1 under on Saturday, 1 under on Sunday, just flies under the radar. And
He's not flying under the radar, Rick.
Get a good number out. The twice back-to-back champion at Byron Nelson won't fly under the radar.
No.
Fair enough. Patrick Cantlay kind of averted disaster. He was 3 over through 6, which moved him to 1 under par, which will end up being the eventual cut line here. So he was flirting with disaster very early in this round. He was able to bounce back on 7 with a birdie. He got 1 on 9. And then he played his second 9 at 1 under par to get it all back to even after the dust settled. So 67-71. He's 4 shots off the pace. That's a huge logjam of golfers. He's in a tie for 20th. But Cantlay didn't have his best stuff, but it was a gritty finish to the round.
And he keeps himself in contention. The bogey at 18 is kind of disappointing, right? You feel much better at 5 than you do at 4. But considering the way this round started, I mean, even at number 5, Rick, he had to make a 6-footer for par. That was, things were starting to move pretty fast at that point. Fortunate to bounce back with a birdie at 7 as well, and hit a really nice shot into 9. So there were a couple good swings there that kind of got him back into the round. But Patrick Cantlay is in position. But again, this was a round where he just saved it. It's a major championship type round. Is there anything that he did really well today? No, he didn't do anything well today except grind it out and put up a respectable score. This is a professional 71, if you will. So just a couple of good shots, able to take advantage when he did, get a couple of birdies on the card to make up for some of those mistakes.
That's a professional beard he is sporting too. That's the best beard I've ever seen Patrick Cantlay have.
Yeah, I noticed that. I don't know, maybe Joey LaCava took the razor away.
Or maybe or maybe they're using like the beard lotion and getting it real nice and
Oh, you think they're working on it?
Yeah, I think you got to have a commitment to it. It's not just letting it
That's
grow.
just not shaving. That's there's care going on there, you're saying.
Yeah, I think there's care. It looks good. It looks great. I love it.
Yeah.
Rory McIlroy did not look great. Rory didn't have a good day. It was ugly. It was ugly all around. The weapon, the driver, let him down. He only lost 0.2 strokes off the tee, but that's very bad for Rory, and it was 100th in the field for the day. He lost nearly 2 strokes on approach. Rory had very, very little going, and he needed to make a 5-footer for par on 18 to make the cut. Spoiler alert, he did. He's going to be 7 shots off the pace. He's going to make the cut on the number, but that was not a Rory at Quail Hollow type of day.
No, just like Patrick Cantlay there, he started making some mistakes. He wasn't really feeling it with the golf swings, the performance on the par 5s. You look at the bogey at number 7 again. We did the same thing yesterday, hit a huge block off that tee.
Yeah.
So he makes a bogey there, a bogey at 10, and had not even a good birdie opportunity at 15. So the failure to take advantage of those holes is a sign that things are a little bit off with the golf swing. I mean, of course, you can see it just watching with the eye test, but where Patrick Cantlay takes advantage of some of those scoring holes and is able to salvage 71, Rory's not, and he ends up kind of scrapping and clawing to make the cut. So, short game was the best attribute of his game today, and even that wasn't great. He likes the short game here at Quail Hollow, but I will say this. Rory's first win on the PGA Tour, he made the cut on the number in this event, and he's only 7 back. So, that being said, everybody who made the cut seems to be in the mix. And I think I don't think that you're going to see a 62 out of Rory, but he has probably a better ability than anybody else down this low on the leaderboard.
He lost 2 shots to the field on Friday. He lost 3 shots alone on the par 5s.
Yeah, that is a problem, right?
Yeah, lost a shot and a quarter on, I'm doing mental math, but a shot and a quarter on 7, shot and a quarter on 8. That's That's 2.5, and he lost a half a stroke on 15. That's 3 strokes on 3 par 5s by Rory McIlroy. It's almost impossible. I bet you it might be like the worst he's ever done.
And it all comes from the driver. Right?
Yes.
It's a right on 7, left on 10. I think right on 15. So, that's something that he's got to get dialed in. And when Rory loses the weapon like that, all of a sudden these other areas like the wedge play things start to get frustrating.
Yeah.
And you can kind of see it in his posture. So look, Rory's in a weird place this week. I'm sure we'll talk about him more tomorrow, but this feels like opening day. This is like the first tournament of the year for Rory McIlroy to me. Because there was so much buildup for Masters. That's all let down. And now this is like a restart. And I'm not surprised that we're seeing a little bit of rust out of him.
You mentioned the fact, and we'll get the odds board up here in a second. But before we do that, you mentioned the fact that everyone is within 7 shots. And we saw, like, what I love about Quail Hollow is it's pretty fair, right? I mean, if you hit good shots, you are rewarded. If you hit bad shots, you are punished. So we saw, 6 under 65s out there. And then we saw guys like, Colin Morikawa and Jordan Spieth, 2 of the best players in the world, shoot 2 over and 6 over. Jordan Spieth was 6 over 77. So there is a pretty wide range of scores, which makes me think that 7 back is not, it's not that far back.
It's not that far back. And you said right on top of the show, this is the other thing. This is why this is a beautiful test. This is where somebody who just got in on the cut or is sitting at, maybe 3 under par or something like that, they get a really early tee time. So they're only 7 back, but they're teeing off hours ahead of the leaders. And as this golf course firms up through the afternoon, I wouldn't be surprised at all if there are some pretty big flips. Some of the guys late playing in those difficult, not that the conditions get difficult because there's been just no wind and you still see this challenge. But all of a sudden you'll see guys with the ability to go shoot those 64s and 65s, really move up the leaderboard, and it can hold because it's a lot harder to score, a lot harder to get the ball close late in the afternoon. I'm definitely expecting that over the next couple of days.
Yes, and looking at the weather, I thought a couple of days ago we were expecting rain overnight tonight. Let me just see if that is still... No, it actually looks pretty clean. So maybe a little Saturday into Sunday, but I think we're okay in terms of...
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay, so let's see the odds board, please, and we'll see how this is shaping up. Tyrrell Hatton. Wow. First off, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys, 7.5 to 1 or shorter. So that is Hatton, Schauffele, JT, Sung J M, Wyndham Clark. You want to go a little bit further than that, you get Adam Scott, Tommy Fleetwood, Max Homa, JJ Spawn, but pretty stacked at the top. And this doesn't even consider those guys, a handful, like where's Patrick Cantlay, right? Like,
right.
Like that's, wow. I'm pretty surprised that we're not getting a Patrick Cantlay, 11 to 1 or something. It's 22 to 1.
Right. Which is a great number for him. Only 4 shots back, and kind of struggling today. Nate Lashley also at that same number. So this is a fascinating board because there are just so many players on here that you really like. I mean, one for me would be KH Lee. He's definitely a guy. KH Lee and Nate Lashley are 2 guys that I really like. I'm still not afraid of Ricky Fowler, who's down there at 3 under par. And getting involved in something like that right now could be, it could look a whole lot different tomorrow. Even though you have to scroll a ways to find their name on the leaderboard tonight, you don't have to scroll a whole lot of shots. So if you're at 3 under par and 4 shots back, you're very much in the mix and you can get some really good numbers down there. So I'm totally fine with that. As for the guys that are up near the top, I think, Schauffele and JT make a ton of sense. Hopefully you have a little action on them already. But the guy on this board who I really like would be Adam Scott.
16 to 1.
16-1. I think that's a good number. He's a proven winner out here, maybe looking for a little resurgence. Didn't hit the ball great today, scrambled his tail off, and he's putting really well too. And Rick, I know that this is a ball striker's golf course, but when you look at the last 5 winners at Quail Hollow, including the PGA in 17, they've all finished inside the top 8 in strokes gained putting. So I'm considering a little more well-rounded game needed. I'm okay with a little bit of scrambling, like we saw from Adam Scott today. I mean, he hit 8 greens today. Now, 4 of those were inside of 10 feet. So I think there's a good possibility with somebody like him.
I like Max Homa, who shot a 67, was 6th off the tee, 3rd on approach, lost 2 strokes putting, still gained 4 to the field, has won this event before and is 22-1. That's the model. That's the model guy.
I get it. I still think Nate Lashley is the model guy.
We may or may not even be mentioning a word of Nate Lashley.
I know. I have a feeling that we won't be, but boy, these first 2 rounds were beautiful.
We'll be back this time tomorrow when the final putt drops on Saturday to discuss round 3 and, of course, round 4. For now, big thanks. Producer Josh does all the hard work behind the scenes. Greg DuCharme, available on Twitter at TheRealGFD, and you can find me at Rick Run Good. This has been The First Cut. We'll catch you next time.